Welcome back, my wonderful family of readers. If you're ready to be swept away by this tale of unexpected love and second chances, subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, another riveting story awaits you, and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's dive in and discover where this extraordinary journey takes us. Charlotte Sebastian thought 5 years of happiness had earned her peace. But when a ghost from her past appeared at her daughter's school, she learned that some debts never expire, and that protecting her family might cost her everything she'd fought so hard to build. The other mothers at Westmont Academy Pickup looked at Charlotte Sebastian with a mixture of curiosity and carefully concealed envy. She'd gotten used to it over the past 6 months since they'd enrolled Isabella. The whispers about the Sebastian family money, the speculation about Diego's import-export business, the way conversations would pause when she approached. Charlotte had learned to smile through it, to be polite but not too friendly, to maintain the careful distance that came with being a Mafia wife. Rosa had coached her. "You're not their friend, Mija. You're Mrs. Sebastian. There's a difference." Today, Charlotte stood under the oak tree near the pickup zone, her designer sunglasses hiding the circles under her eyes from a restless night. Around her, other mothers chatted about playdates and PTA meetings and whose turn it was to bring snacks. Charlotte listened with half an ear, her attention on the school doors where children would start pouring out any minute. "Mrs. Sebastian." Charlotte turned to find another mother approaching, one of the friendlier ones, thank God. Jennifer Morrison, mother of Isabella's new friend Sophie. Blonde, perpetually cheerful and blissfully unaware of the Sebastian family's actual business dealings. "Hi Jennifer, how are you?" "Wonderful. I wanted to ask if Isabella might like to come to Sophie's birthday party next weekend. It's at that new trampoline place downtown. All the girls from class are invited." Charlotte's mind immediately went to security protocols. A public venue, multiple exit points, dozens of unknown children and parents. Diego would hate it. Marco would have an aneurysm. "That sounds lovely," Charlotte heard herself say. "Let me check our schedule and get back to you." "Of course. Oh, and I meant to tell you, there's a new family joining our class. Transfer student starting today, actually. The mother seems nice, though she's keeping to herself over there." Jennifer nodded toward a woman standing alone near the far gate. Charlotte glanced over casually, then froze. The woman was partially turned away, but something about her posture, the way she held herself, sent ice through Charlotte's veins. Dark skin, hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing clothes that were nice but not expensive. She looked familiar. Impossibly, terrifyingly familiar. "Mrs. Sebastian, are you all right?" Charlotte forced herself to look away, to smile at Jennifer. "Fine, sorry. Just remembered something I need to tell my husband. About the party, I'll text you tonight, okay?" The school doors opened, and children exploded outward like champagne from a shaken bottle. Charlotte's eyes immediately found Isabella, easy to spot with her wild curls and purple backpack, holding hands with Sophie as they navigated the crowd. "Mama!" Isabella broke free and ran, launching herself at Charlotte with the fearless abandon of a 6-year-old who knew she'd be caught. "Guess what? I got a star sticker for my reading and I sat next to Emma at lunch and—" "Slow down, baby," Charlotte laughed, scooping her daughter up despite Isabella's protests that she was too big for carrying now. "Tell me everything in the car." But as they walked toward where Marco waited with the SUV, Charlotte couldn't help looking back at the woman by the gate. She was watching them now, her face fully visible. Charlotte's heart stopped. It couldn't be. It was impossible. She'd been gone for 6 years, disappeared without a trace, presumed dead by most people who'd known her. Jasmine Torres. Charlotte's college roommate, best friend for 3 years, the person who'd known her better than anyone except maybe Keisha. Jasmine, who'd gotten mixed up with the wrong people their senior year, who'd borrowed money from loan sharks to cover her mother's medical bills, who'd vanished the week before graduation with nothing but a cryptic text. "I'm sorry. Don't look for me. It's safer if you forget I existed." Charlotte had looked anyway. For months, she'd searched, filed missing persons reports, harassed the police. But Jasmine Torres had vanished like smoke, and eventually Charlotte had been forced to accept that her friend was either dead or didn't want to be found. And now she was here, at Isabella's school, staring at Charlotte with an expression that mixed desperation with something darker. "Mama, you're squishing me," Isabella complained. Charlotte loosened her grip, forcing herself to keep walking. "Sorry, baby, just excited about your star sticker." As Marco opened the car door, Charlotte looked back one more time. Jasmine was gone. But on the ground where she'd been standing, something white caught the light. Charlotte's security training, courtesy of 5 years of Marco's paranoid protocols, kicked in. She memorized the location, the angle, the exact spot. "Marco," she said quietly as Isabella climbed into her booster seat, chattering about her day. "That paper by the far gate. Can you retrieve it after we leave?" Discreetly. Marco's eyes sharpened. He'd learned to trust Charlotte's instincts. Threat. "I don't know yet, maybe nothing." "Nothing doesn't make you use that voice, Mrs. Sebastian." Charlotte slid into the back seat beside Isabella, listening to her daughter's excited recap of first-grade adventures while her mind raced. Jasmine Torres, alive and at Isabella's school. It couldn't be coincidence. Nothing in Charlotte's life was coincidence anymore. And then Miss Peterson said we're going to have a reading buddy program where the big kids help the little kids. And I said I'm basically a big kid now, so maybe I can help the kindergartners and, "Mama, are you listening?" Charlotte snapped back to attention, finding Isabella's dark eyes, so much like Diego's, watching her with that unnerving perceptiveness children sometimes have. "I'm listening, sweetheart. Reading buddies sound wonderful." "You look worried. Are you worried about something?" "Just thinking about what to make for dinner," Charlotte lied smoothly. 5 years of marriage to Diego had made her an excellent liar when necessary. "How about spaghetti?" "With meatballs." "Obviously with meatballs. What kind of monster makes spaghetti without meatballs?" Isabella giggled, satisfied, and went back to her running commentary on the social dynamics of first grade. Charlotte smiled and made appropriate noises while her phone buzzed in her purse. Unknown number. Charlotte's hand trembled slightly as she pulled out her phone. The message was short, just 7 words that made her blood run cold. "We need to talk, alone, it's urgent." No signature, no explanation, but Charlotte knew who'd sent it. A second text came through immediately. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Rosie's Diner on 5th. Come alone or I disappear again. And Charlotte, I'm sorry about what's coming." Charlotte deleted both messages, her training automatic now. Don't leave evidence. Don't give anyone leverage. But her hands were shaking as she pocketed the phone. "What's coming?" "We're home," Isabella announced unnecessarily as Marco pulled through the estate gates. "Can I go see the horses before homework?" "After you change out of your uniform and have a snack," Charlotte said, falling back on the comfortable routines of motherhood. "And homework comes before horses, you know that." "But Mama..." "Rules are rules, Piccola." Isabella huffed dramatically but didn't argue further. She'd learned early that while Mama was softer than Dada about most things, rules about safety and responsibility were non-negotiable. Rosa met them at the door, already prepared with after-school snacks and that knowing look that said she'd picked up on Charlotte's tension immediately. 5 years of working together had made them experts at reading each other. "How was the first day?" Rosa asked Isabella while her eyes asked Charlotte, "What's wrong?" "Amazing, I got a star sticker and..." While Isabella launched into her third retelling of the day's events, Charlotte caught Rose's eye and made a subtle gesture. Later. They'd talk later when little ears weren't listening. Diego wouldn't be home until 6, a meeting with the Castellano family about some shipping contracts that Charlotte knew better than to ask about. That gave her a few hours to figure out how to explain that a ghost from her past had just materialized at their daughter's school. And more importantly, to decide whether she was going to that meeting tomorrow. Going alone, without security, without telling Diego, it violated every protocol they'd established. It was dangerous and stupid, and exactly the kind of thing that got people killed in Diego's world. But the alternative was ignoring Jasmine, letting her disappear again without knowing why she'd come back or what she wanted. And that message, "I'm sorry about what's coming," suggested that ignoring her wasn't an option. Whatever Jasmine had gotten mixed up in 6 years ago, it was back, and somehow it involved Charlotte. After Isabella was settled with her homework and Rosa was supervising, Charlotte went to the one place in the house where she could think, the library. Diego had renovated it for her 3 years ago, filling it with the books she loved and a comfortable reading chair by the window that overlooked the gardens. She stood at that window now, watching security patrols circle the grounds, and pulled out her phone to look at the deleted messages one more time. She'd learned that trick from Diego. Deleted messages weren't really deleted, not if you knew where to look in your phone's data. "I'm sorry about what's coming." Charlotte closed her eyes, thinking about the Jasmine she'd known in college. Smart, funny, fiercely loyal, but also impulsive and too trusting. The kind of person who'd take out loans from dangerous people to help her sick mother without thinking through the consequences. What had Jasmine gotten into? And why, after 6 years of silence, was she surfacing now? The sound of a car in the driveway pulled Charlotte from her thoughts. Too early to be Diego, unless the meeting had ended early. She moved to a window with a better view and felt her stomach drop. 3 black SUVs, not from their fleet. The lead vehicle bore diplomatic plates, federal government. FBI. Charlotte's phone buzzed. "Marco, stay in the house. Federal agents requesting to speak with Mr. Sebastian. He's been notified en route." Through the window, Charlotte watched as 4 agents emerged from the vehicles. Professional, armed, moving with the careful precision of people who expected trouble. The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with steel-gray hair and the bearing of someone used to being obeyed, showed credentials to the gate security. This wasn't a social call. Charlotte's phone rang. Diego, his voice tight and controlled. "Charlotte, stay away from the windows. Marco's with you." "I'm in the library. Marco's with Isabella and Rosa in the nursery wing." "Good, keep them there. The FBI is here with questions about the Castellano meeting. Someone tipped them off. It's a fishing expedition, nothing we can't handle, but I need you to stay calm and stay out of sight." "Diego, I know you can handle yourself, but right now, the best thing you can do is be Mrs. Sebastian having a quiet afternoon with her daughter. Can you do that for me?" Charlotte wanted to tell him about Jasmine, about the message, about the sick feeling in her gut that all of this was connected somehow. But federal agents were climbing the front steps, and Diego was already under pressure. "I can do that," she said instead. "I love you, this will be fine." The line went dead. Through the library door, Charlotte heard voices in the foyer. Vincent's formal greeting, the agent's official tones, the careful dance of law enforcement and organized crime pretending to be civil. She should go to Isabella, should be the calm, reassuring presence her daughter needed. Instead, Charlotte stood frozen in the library, her phone still in her hand, staring at that deleted message. "I'm sorry about what's coming." FBI at the door, Jasmine Torres alive and desperate, a message. About something urgent that couldn't wait. 5 years of peace, Charlotte thought. She'd really believed they'd earned it. The library door opened and Rosa slipped in, her face concerned. "Mija, Isabella's asking for you. She heard the cars, she's worried." Charlotte pocketed her phone and straightened her shoulders, becoming Mrs. Sebastian again, calm, controlled, unshakable. "I'm coming. Is she scared?" "A little." She remembers the last time federal agents came to the house. That had been 2 years ago, a similar fishing expedition that had ended with nothing. But Isabella had been 4, old enough to sense the tension even if she didn't understand it. Charlotte followed Rosa through the house, her mind split between immediate concerns and the larger mystery. In the nursery wing, Isabella sat on her bed surrounded by stuffed animals, her homework forgotten. "Mama, why are the police here?" she asked immediately. "Is Dada in trouble?" Charlotte sat beside her daughter, pulling her close. "No, baby. Sometimes grown-ups have boring meetings about boring business things. That's all this is." "Then why do you look scared?" "I'm not scared," Charlotte lied, smiling. "I'm just thinking about all the things I need to do before dinner. You know how my brain gets sometimes." Isabella studied her face with that unsettling perception, then seemed to accept the explanation. "Can we still go see the horses after homework?" "After homework and after the boring grown-ups leave. Deal." "Deal." Charlotte stayed with Isabella through homework, through the sounds of voices rising and falling in other parts of the house, through the tension that made her shoulders ache. An hour passed, then another. Finally, her phone buzzed with a text from Diego. "They're leaving. False alarm. Meet me in my office in 10 minutes." Charlotte waited until she heard the vehicles leaving, until the house settled back into its normal rhythms. Rosa stayed with Isabella while Charlotte made her way to Diego's office. He was pouring scotch when she entered, his jacket off and tie loosened, sure signs of stress. "They had nothing," he said without preamble. "Someone tipped them about the Castellano meeting, claimed we were discussing illegal arms deals. Complete fabrication. But someone knew about the meeting." Someone always knows. That's the nature of this business. There are no true secrets, just information that hasn't been sold yet. Diego handed her a glass, and Charlotte took it even though she rarely drank. "What worries me is the timing. FBI showing up the same day Isabella starts school." Charlotte's hand tightened on the glass. This was the moment. Tell him about Jasmine, about the message, about all of it. But before she could speak, Diego's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's Konstantin Volkov. I need to take this." "Go ahead. I should check on Isabella anyway." Diego caught her hand as she turned to leave, pulling her back for a quick kiss. "We're okay. This was just someone being annoying, nothing we can't handle." Charlotte nodded and left, but Diego's words echoed in her head. There are no true secrets, just information that hasn't been sold yet. What information did Jasmine have? And who was she trying to sell it to? That night, after Isabella was asleep and Diego was locked in his office handling the fallout from the FBI visit, Charlotte stood on their bedroom balcony and made a decision. She was going to that meeting tomorrow. She'd go alone, as Jasmine requested. She wouldn't tell Diego, wouldn't bring security, wouldn't follow any of the protocols that had kept her safe for 5 years. Because whatever Jasmine was mixed up in, whatever was coming that she was apologizing for, Charlotte needed to know, needed to face it head-on before it reached her family. It was dangerous, it was probably stupid. But Charlotte had learned something important over the past 5 years. Sometimes the bravest thing you could do was trust your instincts, even when everyone else thought you were crazy. Her phone buzzed one more time, another message from the unknown number. "Thank you for not running. What I have to tell you will change everything. I'm sorry, Charlotte, for all of it." Charlotte deleted the message and went to bed, lying next to Diego and listening to him breathe, memorizing the sound in case tomorrow changed everything. In the darkness, she whispered a prayer her grandmother had taught her, Lord, give me strength for what's coming, and if I don't come back, keep them safe. Then she closed her eyes and tried to sleep, knowing she wouldn't. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., she'd learn what ghost from her past had come to destroy her future. And she'd face it alone. Charlotte woke at 5 a.m. to find Diego's side of the bed already empty. She found him in his home gym, punishing a heavy bag with the kind of controlled violence that meant he was working through something. Couldn't sleep, she asked from the doorway. Diego threw one more combination before turning, his chest heaving and covered in sweat. Konstantin called back at midnight. The Volkovs are hearing rumors about a federal task force, something bigger than yesterday's fishing expedition. Multi-agency, long-term investigation. Charlotte's stomach dropped. Into what? All of us, the families, our operations, everything. Diego grabbed a towel, wiping his face. Someone's talking, Charlotte. Someone with access to information they shouldn't have. You think there's an informant? I think there's someone who wants to watch Chicago burn. Diego's eyes were dark with worry. The timing is too perfect. FBI shows up the day Isabella starts school. Rumors of a task force start circulating, and now the Castellanos are getting paranoid, which makes everyone else paranoid. This was it. Charlotte should tell him about Jasmine right now, about the meeting scheduled for 10 a.m., but looking at Diego, exhausted, stressed, carrying the weight of protecting not just their family but the entire Sebastian operation. She couldn't add to his burden. Not yet. Not until she knew what she was dealing with. What are you going to do? She asked instead. Tighten security, review our operations, make sure everything is airtight. Diego moved closer, cupping her face with hands that were gentle despite their recent violence. And keep you and Isabella safe. That's my priority. Always. Charlotte leaned into his touch, feeling guilt twist in her chest. We're safe. You've made sure of that. Have I? Yesterday the FBI walked up to our door. What if next time it's not the FBI? What if it's someone like Victor, someone who sees our family as a weakness to exploit? Then we handle it together, like we always do. Diego pulled her close and Charlotte wrapped her arms around him, breathing in sweat and cologne and home. She was lying to him by omission and she hated it. But she also knew Diego. If she told him about Jasmine, about the meeting, he'd either forbid her to go or insist on sending Marco and a full security team. And Jasmine had been clear, come alone or I disappear. I love you, Charlotte whispered against his chest. I love you too, even when you're keeping secrets from me. Charlotte pulled back, her heart hammering. What? Diego's smile was sad and knowing. 5 years of marriage, amore. I can tell when something's bothering you. When you're ready to tell me, I'll be here. He kissed her forehead and headed for the shower, leaving Charlotte standing in the gym feeling like the worst wife in the world. By 8 a.m., the house was in full morning chaos mode. Isabella was arguing about why she couldn't wear her princess costume to school, because we have rules, baby, and school uniforms are one of them. Diego was on 3 different phone calls simultaneously, and Rosa was trying to coordinate breakfast while managing the household. Staff. Charlotte moved through it all on autopilot, smiling and responding, and playing the role of Mrs. Sebastian, while her mind raced through scenarios for the meeting with Jasmine. Best case, Jasmine needed money help, a favor from Charlotte's past life that had nothing to do with the Sebastians. Worst case, Jasmine was working with the FBI or worse with a rival family, and this was a setup. Most likely case, something in between that would complicate Charlotte's life in ways she couldn't predict. Mama, you're not listening again, Isabella complained, pulling on Charlotte's sleeve. I said Sophie invited me for a playdate tomorrow. Can I go? Charlotte knelt to her daughter's level, tucking a wild curl behind her ear. Let me talk to Sophie's mom and Dada first, okay? We'll figure it out. You always say you'll figure it out. That means no. That means we need to check the schedule and make sure it works for everyone. Charlotte kissed her daughter's forehead. Now, finish your breakfast. Marco's waiting to take you to school. Aren't you coming? Charlotte had planned on it. Pick up and drop off were her favorite parts of the day, the normal mom moments that made her feel like more than just a Mafia wife. But the meeting with Jasmine was at 10, and school drop-off would eat into the time she needed to prepare. Not today, baby. Mama has an appointment, but I'll be there for pickup, I promise. Isabella's face fell and Charlotte felt guilt stab through her. But you always come. I know, and I'll come tomorrow and the day after and every day after that. Today's just special, okay? Diego appeared in the doorway, reading Charlotte's face with that uncanny accuracy. Bella, go brush your teeth. Mama and I need to talk for a minute. Isabella huffed but obeyed, and Diego waited until she was out of earshot before turning to Charlotte. What appointment? Just something I need to handle, personal. Charlotte. Diego, please, I just need a few hours. I'll be back before lunch. He studied her face, and Charlotte could see him calculating, trying to figure out what she wasn't saying. Finally, he nodded. Take Marco. I don't need. Take Marco or you don't go, non-negotiable. Diego's voice held that tone that meant arguing would be pointless. Whatever this is, whatever you're not telling me, you don't face it alone. That's the deal. Charlotte wanted to argue, wanted to explain that Jasmine had specifically said come alone. But Diego's expression was immovable, and she was already pushing her luck by not telling him everything. Okay, she agreed. Marco can drive me. And stay with you. Diego. And stay with you. Each word was deliberate. Charlotte, I'm trying to respect whatever privacy you need here, but I'm not sending you out without protection. Not with everything that's happening. Charlotte nodded, already planning how she'd ditch Marco once they got to the diner. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to work. After Isabella left for school, with many dramatic sighs about Mama not coming, Charlotte changed into jeans and a simple blouse. Nothing that screamed Mafia wife, nothing that would draw attention. She was going back to being the old Charlotte for a few hours, the one who cleaned tables and struggled with bills. The one Jasmine had known. Marco was waiting by the car, his expression carefully neutral. Where are we going, Mrs. Sebastian? Rosie's Diner on 5th. Marco's eyebrows rose slightly. That's not your usual area. I know, I'm meeting someone, an old friend. Does this old friend have a name? Charlotte hesitated, then decided partial truth was better than lying. Jasmine Torres. We were roommates in college. She disappeared 6 years ago. She reached out yesterday. Marco's expression shifted from neutral to alert. Disappeared how? Vanished. No warning, no explanation. I looked for her for months, but it was like she'd never existed. Charlotte met his eyes. Marco, I need to do this. I need to know why she's back. And boss knows about this. He knows I have a meeting. He doesn't know the details. Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then, he's not going to like this. I know, but I'm going anyway. Then I'm coming with you. Inside the diner, close enough to intervene if needed. She said come alone. Mrs. Sebastian, with all due respect, I don't care what she said. My job is to keep you alive, and I'm not waiting in the car while you walk into a potential trap. Marco's scarred face was implacable. We can argue about this, or we can leave now and make your appointment on time. Your choice. Charlotte checked her phone, 9:15. If they left now, they'd arrive with time to spare. Fine, but you stay back, let me talk to her first. Deal. The drive to Rosie's Diner took them through neighborhoods Charlotte hadn't seen in years. Her old stomping grounds, where rent was measured in what you could afford rather than what you wanted. The gentrification that was spreading through Chicago hadn't reached here yet. The buildings were the same slightly run-down structures she remembered, the people on the streets familiar in their diversity and struggle. This was where she'd lived before Diego, before the estate, before any of this. Looking at it now felt like looking at a past life. Rosie's diner was exactly as Charlotte remembered: red vinyl booths, checkered floors, the smell of coffee and grease that promised comfort food and honest prices. At 9:45 on a Tuesday morning, it was half full with the usual crowd. Retirees nursing coffee, freelancers on laptops, a few parents with young children. And in the back corner booth, wearing a baseball cap pulled low and oversized sunglasses, Jasmine Torres. Charlotte's breath caught. Even with the disguise, she'd know Jasmine anywhere. The way she hunched slightly like she was trying to make herself smaller. The nervous gesture of twisting a napkin between her fingers. The careful positioning that gave her a view of both the door and the kitchen exit. Someone had taught Jasmine to be paranoid. "That's her," Charlotte said quietly to Marco. Marco's eyes swept the diner, cataloging exits and potential threats with practiced efficiency. "I'll take the booth by the window. You get into trouble, you signal me." "How do I signal you?" "You'll figure it out. Just don't get yourself killed before I can intervene." Charlotte slid out of the car and walked into the diner on legs that felt steadier than she'd expected. The bell above the door chimed, and Jasmine's head snapped up. Even through the sunglasses, Charlotte could see the fear. She crossed the diner slowly, aware of Marco taking his position, aware that every eye in the place was tracking her movement out of boredom or curiosity. When she reached Jasmine's booth, she slid in without waiting for an invitation. "Hello, Jas." Jasmine pulled off the sunglasses with shaking hands, and Charlotte had to suppress a gasp. Her old friend looked like she'd aged a decade. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before, a hardness to her expression that spoke of things seen and done that couldn't be unseen or undone. "Charlie," Jasmine breathed, using the old nickname. "God, you look amazing, like you stepped out of a magazine. You look like you've been through hell." Jasmine laughed, the sound brittle and broken. "That's because I have been, multiple circles of it." She glanced around nervously. "Is that man by the window yours, security?" "Yes, he's discreet. He's obvious as hell to anyone who knows what to look for, but I guess that makes sense, given who you married." Jasmine's voice held something Charlotte couldn't quite identify, not judgment, not exactly, but something close. "Diego Sebastian. When I saw the wedding announcement 3 years ago, I couldn't believe it. My Charlotte, who wanted to be a social worker and help disadvantaged families, married to a goddamn mafia boss. It's complicated." "I bet it is." Jasmine's hands were still shaking as she reached for her coffee. "I'm sorry for disappearing, for not reaching out, for all of it. I wanted to, 100 times I almost called, but I couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk bringing my problems to your door." "What problems, Jas? What happened to you?" Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, her eyes distant. "Remember my mom, how she got sick our senior year? The cancer. You took out loans to cover the treatment." "Not loans, loan, singular, from a man named Raymond Chen. He is a loan shark connected to the Triad. At the time I didn't understand what that meant. I just knew he'd give me the money my mom needed, no questions asked, no credit check." Jasmine's voice cracked. "The interest was insane, and when I couldn't pay, Chen said I could work it off. Information gathering, courier work, nothing illegal, or so he said." Charlotte felt ice in her veins. "Jasmine, what did you do?" "I became a spy. Chen would send me into offices, companies, law firms, anywhere he needed inside information. I'd apply for jobs under fake names, work there for a few months, copy files, steal documents, whatever he needed. And when that wasn't enough, when the debt kept growing instead of shrinking, he made me do worse things." "How much worse?" Jasmine met Charlotte's eyes, and what Charlotte saw there made her stomach turn. "Bad enough that I can't sleep without pills. Bad enough that I have 3 different identities and an escape bag always packed. Bad enough that when Chen said he was done with me 6 years ago, I knew he was lying. You don't leave the triad. You either die or you disappear so completely they can't find you. So you disappeared. For 6 years I've been running. New city every few months, never using the same name twice, always looking over my shoulder. Jasmine's hands finally stopped shaking, settling into the stillness of complete exhaustion. And then 3 months ago, Chen found me, except he didn't want to kill me. He wanted to hire me again. One last job, he said. Big payday, enough to finally clear my debt and disappear for real. Charlotte already knew what was coming, could feel it settling in her bones like frost. What's the job? You, Jasmine whispered. He wants information on you, on your husband, on the Sebastian family operations. The Triads are making a move into Chicago and they want leverage on the existing families. Diego Sebastian is their biggest obstacle. The diner seemed to tilt and spin. Charlotte gripped the edge of the table, forcing herself to breathe steadily. So yesterday at the school was me doing reconnaissance, confirming you had a daughter, checking security protocols, mapping out vulnerabilities. Jasmine was crying now, tears sliding down her face. Charlie, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to do this, but Chen said if I refused, he'd kill me. And not just me, my mom, my sister, everyone I've ever cared about, including you. So why tell me? Why warn me? Because I can't do it. I can't be the reason your daughter loses her mother, the reason your husband loses his wife. I've done terrible things, Charlie, but I'm not a monster. Jasmine pulled out a USB drive, sliding it across the table. This is everything Chen wanted. Information I've gathered over the past 3 weeks, your routines, Isabella's school schedule, security details I've observed. I was supposed to deliver it to him tonight. Charlotte stared at the USB drive like it was a snake. Why are you giving it to me? Because you need to know what he knows, and because I need your help. Jasmine's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Chen isn't working alone. He has someone inside the Sebastian organization feeding him information. Someone close to your husband who's been waiting for the right moment to make a move. Charlotte. Blood went cold. Who? I don't know. Chen never told me and I couldn't risk asking. But whoever it is, they've been planning this for months. The FBI visit yesterday. That wasn't random. Someone called in that tip specifically to create chaos, to make Diego paranoid and reactive. The rumors about a task force, planted by the same person to create fear and division among the families. This is a coordinated attack. It's a war, Charlie, and you and your family are ground zero. Jasmine reached across the table, gripping Charlotte's hand with desperate strength. I know I have no right to ask for anything after what I've done, but I'm begging you, help me disappear for real this time. Get me somewhere Chen can't reach me. Give me a new identity that actually works, and I'll tell you everything I know. Every detail of Chen's plan, every piece of intelligence I've gathered. Charlotte's mind raced, weighing options and risks. Taking Jasmine's help meant bringing Diego into this. Meant admitting she'd kept secrets. Meant exposing her past in ways that might damage the trust they'd built. But leaving Jasmine to face Chen alone meant losing valuable intelligence, and probably losing her old friend forever. I need to make a call, Charlotte said. Charlie, please, you can't tell anyone. I'm calling my husband, because if what you're saying is true, if there's a mole in his organization and the Triads are making a move, he needs to know now. Charlotte pulled out her phone. And Jas, the only way I can help you is if Diego agrees to it. This isn't my decision alone. Jasmine looked like she might bolt, her eyes darting to the exits. But then she slumped back in the booth, defeated. Okay, call him, but Charlie, tell him I'm sorry for all of it. Charlotte dialed Diego's private number, the one that bypassed his assistants and security screens. He answered on the first ring. Charlotte, what's wrong? I need you to come to Rosie's diner on 5th Street. Now, and Diego, bring Marco's interrogation kit. we have a situation." There was a pause, then Diego's voice went cold and deadly. "Are you in danger?" "Not immediate danger, but we have a problem, a big one." "I'm on my way, 10 minutes. Stay with Marco, stay alert, and Charlotte. If anyone tries to hurt you, you know what to do." The line went dead. Charlotte looked across the table at Jasmine, who'd gone pale. "He's coming." "He's coming. And Jas, when he gets here, you tell him everything. No holding back, no protecting anyone. Because if you're right about there being a mole, if Chen really is planning what you say he is, then we're all in danger, including you." "I know," Jasmine whispered. "That's why I couldn't go through with it, why I had to warn you. Because whatever I've done, whatever I've become, I'm not going to be responsible for your death. I'd rather die myself." "Nobody's dying today," Charlotte said with more confidence than she felt. "But Jas, things are about to get very complicated very fast, and once Diego gets here, there's no going back. You understand that?" Jasmine nodded, her face set with grim determination. "I understand, and Charlie, thank you for not running when you saw me yesterday, for coming here today, for giving me a chance to make this right." "Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over and we're all still alive." Through the diner window, Charlotte saw black SUVs pulling up, 3 of them, which meant Diego had brought backup. Marco was already on his feet, moving to intercept and brief them before they entered. Charlotte watched her husband emerge from the lead vehicle, his expression carved from granite, his movements precise and controlled. This wasn't Diego the father or Diego the husband. This was Diego Sebastian, head of the Sebastian family, and he was ready for war. "Here we go," Charlotte murmured. Jasmine swallowed hard. "Is he going to kill me?" "Not if you tell him everything and it checks." "Out," Charlotte met her old friend's terrified eyes. "But Jas, if you're lying, if this is a setup, if you're working with Chen and this is all part of his plan, then yes, he'll kill you and I won't be able to stop him." "I'm not lying," Jasmine insisted. "I swear on my mother's life I'm telling you the truth." The diner door opened, and Diego walked in with Marco and 2 other guards flanking him. Every conversation in the diner died. People recognized danger when they saw it, even if they didn't know the specifics. Diego's eyes found Charlotte immediately, scanning her for injuries before moving to Jasmine. His expression didn't change, but Charlotte could read the fury and fear warring beneath the surface. "Mrs. Sebastian," he said formally, using her title like a shield. "Perhaps you'd like to introduce me to your friend." Charlotte stood, moving to Diego's side and feeling his arm automatically wrap around her waist, protective, possessive, relieved. "Diego, this is Jasmine Torres, my college roommate. She has information about a threat to our family." Diego's eyes never left Jasmine, who was visibly trembling now. "A threat you chose to discuss with my wife without my knowledge or protection." "It's complicated," Charlotte said quickly. "But Diego, she came to warn us. She's trying to help." "Is she?" Diego's voice was silk over steel. "Or is she the threat herself?" "Both," Jasmine managed, her voice barely audible. "I'm both. And Mr. Sebastian, your wife is right. You need to hear what I have to say. Because in about 8 hours, Raymond Chen is expecting me to deliver intelligence that will let him destroy your family. And if I don't show up, he's going to know something's wrong. Which means you have 8 hours to decide what to do about it." Diego's expression didn't change, but Charlotte felt him tense. "Marco, clear the diner. Everyone out. Pay them for the inconvenience, but I want this place empty in 2 minutes." As Marco moved to comply, and confused patrons were ushered out with $100 bills and polite firmness, Diego slid into the booth across from Jasmine, pulling Charlotte down beside him. "You have 8 hours to convince me not to kill you," Diego said pleasantly. "I suggest you start talking." And as Jasmine began her story again, this time with all the details, all the awful truth, Charlotte felt the carefully constructed peace of the past 5 years crumble around them. The storm had arrived, and this time it had a face and a name, and a plan that might destroy everything they'd built. Jasmine talked for 90 minutes straight. She told them everything: how Raymond Chen had trapped her with debt, how she'd spent 6 years doing his dirty work, how she tried to disappear and failed. She described the Triads' expansion plans, their interest in Chicago's criminal infrastructure, and their specific focus on the Sebastian family as the primary obstacle to their ambitions. Diego listened without interrupting, his expression carved from ice, while Marco took notes and occasionally asked clarifying questions. Charlotte sat beside her husband, watching her old friend dismantle herself with brutal honesty, and felt the weight of all the choices that had led them to this moment. When Jasmine finally finished, pulling out the USB drive and sliding it across the table again, the diner was silent except for the hum of the refrigerators behind the counter. Diego picked up the USB drive, turning it over in his fingers. "This contains everything you gathered on my family. Everything Chen asked for: routines, security protocols, Isabella's school schedule, Charlotte's movements." Jasmine's voice was hoarse from talking. "There's also a file on there with Chen's operation details, everything I know about his organization, his contacts, his plans. I figured if I was going to burn my bridges, I might as well burn all of them." "Convenient," Diego said coldly. "You spy on my family for 3 weeks, gather enough intelligence to get us all killed, then suddenly grow a conscience and want to help us. Forgive me if I'm skeptical. I don't blame you for not trusting me. I wouldn't trust me either." Jasmine's hands were clasped on the table, trembling slightly. "But Mr. Sebastian, I'm not lying about the mole. Chen knows things he shouldn't, things I never told him because I never learned them. Details about your business operations, upcoming meetings, financial transactions. Someone inside your organization has been feeding him information for months." Diego's expression didn't change, but Charlotte felt him go very still. "Give me names. Everyone you've had contact with in my organization." "I haven't had direct contact with anyone. That was Chen's rule. I stay on the periphery, observe from a distance, never engage directly." Jasmine pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos. "But I've seen the same man meeting with Chen 3 times over the past 2 months. Here." She showed Diego a photo taken from a distance, grainy, slightly blurred, but clear enough to make out 2 men in conversation outside what looked like a warehouse. One was Asian, mid-50s, expensive suit. The other. Charlotte felt Diego's hand tighten on hers, his grip suddenly painful. "When was this taken?" His voice was deadly quiet. 3 weeks ago. I followed Chen to this meeting, hoping to get intelligence I could use as leverage. I didn't recognize the other man, but based on what Chen said afterward, he's someone high up in your organization." "Marco," Diego said, his eyes never leaving the photo. "Call Antonio. Tell him I need a full audit of everyone with access to my calendar for the past 6 months. Everyone. I don't care if it's my grandmother. I want to know every person who knew about my movements." Marco pulled out his phone, stepping away to make the call. Diego handed Jasmine's phone to one of the other guards. "Run facial recognition. I want to know who that is within the hour." "Boss, I already know who it is," the guard said quietly. "That's Vincent." The name hung in the air like a grenade, with the pin pulled. Vincent, Diego's head of household. The man who'd managed the Sebastian estate for 20 years, who'd served Diego's father before him. Vincent, who'd shown Charlotte to her room that first day, who'd coordinated their wedding, who knew every detail of their daily lives. Vincent, who had access to everything. Diego's face went blank, all emotion locked down behind the mask he wore when making the hardest decisions. Where is he now? "At the estate," Marco said, returning from his call. "Antonio confirms he's been there all morning, supervising the household staff." And Isabella. At school, she's secure, full security detail active. Diego stood abruptly, his movement controlled despite the fury Charlotte could feel radiating from him. We're going home. Jasmine, you're coming with us. You stay in protective custody until we verify your information and neutralize the threat. And if your people decide I'm lying, Jasmine asked, if Vincent has an alibi or an explanation, then you die, Diego said simply. But I'll make it quick, which is more mercy than you get from Chen. Jasmine swallowed hard but nodded. That's fair. The drive back to the estate was tense and silent. Charlotte sat in the back seat with Diego, his hand gripping hers with bruising force. She could see his mind working, calculating, planning the conversation with Vincent and every move that would follow. 5 years, Diego finally said, his voice tight. If this is true, Vincent has been betraying me for at least 5 years, maybe longer. We don't know it's him yet, Charlotte said, though the evidence seemed damning. The photo could be doctored, or there could be an explanation. Charlotte, Diego turned to look at her, and what she saw in his eyes made her breath catch. Vincent knew about Victor Volkov. He knew the security protocols, knew where you'd be when they took you. I thought we'd gotten lucky that you escaped, that our planning had worked. But what if it wasn't luck? What if Vincent made sure you could escape because keeping you alive served Chen's purposes better than letting Victor kill you? The implication was staggering. You think he's been working with Chen since then? I think Chen has been planning this move for years, and Vincent has been his inside man the entire time, which means everything we thought was secure, every protocol we thought was secret, has been compromised. Diego's voice was hollow. We've been living in a house where the enemy knew our every move. Charlotte thought about Vincent, his perfect service, his unwavering loyalty, the way he'd helped her adjust to life in the Sebastian household. Had it all been an act? Had he been reporting her routines to Chen, helping build the intelligence file that would ultimately destroy them? They arrived at the estate to find it in full lockdown mode. Guards at every entrance, security teams positioned throughout the grounds, the entire household on high alert. Marco had called ahead, briefing the security chief but not explaining why. As far as anyone knew, this was a standard security drill. Vincent met them at the door, his expression concerned. Mr. Sebastian, I heard there was a situation. Is everyone all right? Diego's face was unreadable. Vincent, I need you to come to my office, now. Of course, sir. Should I have Rosa bring tea? No, just you. Diego turned to the guards who'd accompanied them. Escort our guest to the secure room in the basement. Make sure she's comfortable but watched. Jasmine met Charlotte's eyes as the guards led her away, her expression a mixture of fear and resignation. Charlotte wanted to say something reassuring, but what could she say? They were about to interrogate a man who might have been betraying them for years, using information provided by the friend who'd spied on them for weeks. There were no reassuring words for this situation. In Diego's office, Vincent stood near the desk with his usual perfect posture, his expression mildly curious. Sir, if I may ask, what is this about? Diego didn't offer Vincent a seat. He simply pulled out his phone and showed him the photo of the meeting with Chen. Explain this. Vincent's face went through a fascinating series of changes: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally resignation. When he spoke, his voice was steady but defeated. How long have you known? 20 minutes, but I'm guessing you've been betraying me considerably longer than that. Vincent closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, the perfect servant was gone. In his place stood a tired man carrying the weight of impossible choices. 5 years, since Chen first approached me with proof that my son was alive. Charlotte felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Your son, Vincent, I didn't know you had children. I don't, or I didn't think I did. Vincent moved to the window, his shoulders slumped. 30 years ago, before I came to work for your father, Mr. Sebastian, I had a relationship with a woman in San Francisco. She got pregnant, we argued, I left. I was young and stupid and convinced myself she'd be better off without me. What does this have to do with Chen? Diego's voice was cold. 3 years ago, my son, Michael, got mixed up with the Triads in San Francisco. Drugs, gambling, debts, the usual story. He disappeared and I thought he was dead. Then 5 years ago, Chen showed me proof that Michael was alive, being held by the Triads as insurance against my cooperation. So you sold me out to save a son you'd never met, Diego said flatly. I sold you out to save my child's life, and before you judge me too harshly, ask yourself what you'd do for Isabella. Vincent's voice cracked. Chen said he just needed information. Nothing that would directly harm you or your family. Just intelligence about your operations, your meetings, your routines. He promised Michael would be released once the Triads established their presence in Chicago. And you believed him. Marco, who'd been silent until now, sounded disgusted. You've been in this life long enough to know the Triads don't keep promises. I believed because I needed to believe, because the alternative was accepting that my son was dead and there was nothing I could do about it. Vincent turned back to Diego, his face haggard. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for mercy. I just want you to understand that I didn't do this lightly. Every piece of information I passed along felt like swallowing glass. Watching Mrs. Sebastian integrate into this family, watching Isabella grow up, knowing I was helping plan their destruction. His voice broke completely. I'm sorry for all of it. I'm so deeply sorry. Diego was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, where's your son now? I don't know. Chen moves him frequently, never tells me where. I haven't seen him in 5 years. For all I know, he's already dead and Chen has been playing me for a fool. He has been playing you for a fool, Diego said. Chen never intended to release your son. He was always going to hold that leverage until you were no longer useful, then kill you both to tie up loose ends. Vincent nodded, accepting this with the air of a man who'd already suspected as much. What happens now? Now you tell us everything. Every piece of information you pass to Chen, every meeting, every contact. You give us complete access to your communications and help us understand exactly what Chen knows and how he plans to use it. Diego moved closer, his voice dropping. And then, Vincent, you're going to help us destroy him. Vincent's head snapped up. What? You're going to continue feeding Chen information. Except now, it'll be information we control. False intelligence designed to make him think his plan is working while we systematically dismantle his operation from the inside. Diego's smile was cold and dangerous. You want to save your son. Help me destroy Chen and I'll make finding Michael my top priority. But Vincent, if you betray me again, if you give Chen one piece of real intelligence, I won't kill you quickly. I'll make sure you suffer every moment of what's left of your life. Understood? Understood. Vincent straightened, some life returning to his eyes. Mr. Sebastian, if there's any chance Michael is still alive, if you can help me find him, I'll do everything in my power. But Vincent, you've burned 20 years of trust in 5 minutes. You'll spend the rest of your life earning it back, and you'll never fully succeed. The best you can hope for is to die knowing you helped protect this family instead of destroy it. That's more than I deserve, Vincent said quietly. Diego turned to Marco. Take him to the secure room with Jasmine. Get statements from both of them, cross-reference everything, and start building a complete picture of Chen's operation and timeline. I want to know every person he's contacted, every piece of intelligence that's been compromised, every weakness in our security. As Marco led Vincent out, Charlotte moved to Diego's side. He was gripping the edge of his desk so hard his knuckles were white. Diego. I trusted him. The words came out raw and broken. Vincent was here when I was born. He served my father, taught me how to tie a tie, gave me advice about women and business and life. And the entire time he was selling us out. He was trying to save his son. I don't care, Diego's control finally snapped, his fist slamming into the desk hard enough to make everything on it jump. I don't care about his reasons or his excuses or his tragic backstory. He put you in danger. He put Isabella in danger. He compromised this family's security for 5 years while I walked around thinking we were safe. Charlotte wrapped her arms around him from behind, feeling him shake with fury and betrayal. We're still safe. We caught it before Chen could make his move. Did we, or are we exactly where Chen wants us, paranoid, divided, questioning everyone around us? Diego turned in her arms, his eyes dark with anguish. Charlotte, if Vincent was compromised, who else might be? How many other people in this organization have been turned? How do I trust anyone now? You start by trusting me, Charlotte said firmly. And Isabella and Marco and Rosa. You start with the people you know are loyal and build outward from there. I thought Vincent was loyal. Vincent was, until his son's life was threatened. That's not loyalty failing, Diego, that's humanity. He made a terrible choice for understandable reasons. Charlotte cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. But now we know. Now we can act. And we have 8 hours before Chen expects Jasmine to deliver her intelligence. We use that time to set a trap. Diego's expression shifted, the fury channeling into something more focused and dangerous. You're right. We use Vincent's betrayal against Chen. Feed him false information, draw him out, make him commit his resources to an attack that won't work. And while he's exposed, we find his operations and dismantle them, including wherever he's holding Vincent's son. If the son is still alive. If he's alive, we save him. If he's dead, we make Chen pay for it. Charlotte surprised herself with the coldness in her own voice. 5 years of being Mrs. Sebastian had taught her things about justice and vengeance she'd never learned in her sociology classes. Either way, Chen learns that you don't threaten the Sebastian family without consequences. Diego pulled her close, breathing deeply like he was trying to memorize her scent. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other, before the demands of the crisis pulled them back into action. There were calls to make, strategies to plan, a trap to set that would require perfect timing and flawless execution. But first, Charlotte had one more thing to handle. I need to see Jasmine, she said. Alone, just for a few minutes. Diego studied her face. Why? Because she's terrified and she betrayed me and she's still my friend. I need to figure out what that means now. She spied on our family, Charlotte, on our daughter. I know, but she also warned us before Chen could act. She gave us the information we needed to catch Vincent and stop whatever Chen had planned. That has to count for something. Diego was quiet, then nodded reluctantly. 10 minutes. Marco will be outside the door. The secure room in the basement was comfortable as prisons went, furniture, a private bathroom, even a small TV. Jasmine sat on the couch, looking like she'd aged another decade in the past 2 hours. When Charlotte entered, she stood quickly. Charlie, is Vincent, did he? He confessed, you were right about everything. Charlotte closed the door behind her, suddenly unsure what to say. Chen has his son, has had him for 5 years, using him as leverage. God, Jasmine sank back onto the couch. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much after what I've done, but I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Why did you do it? Charlotte asked. Not the spying, I understand that part, but why warn me? You could have delivered the intelligence to Chen, collected your payment, and disappeared. Why risk your life to tell me the truth? Jasmine was quiet for a long moment. Do you remember sophomore year when my mom got sick the first time? Before the cancer, when it was just pneumonia but we didn't have insurance and I was panicking about the hospital bills. I remember. I gave you my rent money. You gave me your rent money, and then you slept on Keisha's couch for 2 months so you wouldn't miss your own rent and get evicted. You never asked for it back, never made me feel bad about it, just told me to pay it forward someday. Jasmine's voice shook. This is me paying it forward, Charlie. You saved my mother's life when we were 20. I'm trying to save your daughter's life now. Charlotte felt tears prick her eyes. Jas, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to understand that when Chen ordered me to gather intelligence on your family, when I saw your name and your husband's name and realized what he was asking me to do, I wanted to die. Jasmine wiped at her eyes. The only thing that kept me going was planning how to warn you, how to give you the information you needed to fight back. So yeah, I spied on you and your family. But Charlotte, I was always planning to betray Chen. From the very first moment, I was looking for a way to protect you. Diego wants to use you, Charlotte said. To feed false information to Chen, draw him into a trap. It'll be dangerous. If Chen suspects you've turned, he'll kill you. I know, and I'll do it anyway. Jasmine met her eyes. Whatever it takes to fix this, I'll do it, even if it means dying in the process. You're not going to die, Charlotte said firmly. We're going to destroy Chen, rescue Vincent's son if he's still alive, and get you far away from all of this. Diego has connections. He can give you a real new identity, real protection. But Jas, this is the last favor. After this, we're even. Understood? Understood. Jasmine stood, moving to hug Charlotte, then hesitated. Can I? Charlotte pulled her into a fierce hug, feeling Jasmine shake with sobs. You betrayed me, she whispered into her old friend's hair. And I'm still so angry at you I can barely see straight. But you also came back when you could have run. So we're going to fix this mess together, and then you're going to disappear and never contact me again. Because Jas, I can forgive you for spying on me, but I can't forget that you put my daughter in danger. I know, Jasmine sobbed. I'm so sorry, Charlie, I'm so sorry. They stood like that for another moment before Charlotte pulled away, wiping her eyes. Marco's going to come in now and go over the plan. You do exactly what Diego says, no improvising, no trying to be a hero. You follow orders and you stay alive. Got it? Got it. Charlotte left the secure room and found Marco waiting outside, his expression carefully neutral. She cooperating. She'll cooperate. Marco, keep her safe. She made terrible choices, but she's trying to make them right. Boss's orders are to use her as bait if necessary. I know, but if it doesn't become necessary, if there's any way to keep her out of the direct line of fire. Charlotte stopped, knowing she was asking for the impossible. In Diego's world, there were no safe positions. Everyone was expendable if the mission required it. I'll do my best, Marco said quietly. But Mrs. Sebastian, your friend made her choices. We all have to live with our consequences. Charlotte nodded and headed upstairs, where Diego was in his office with his phone pressed to his ear and half a dozen different security feeds displayed on monitors. The Sebastian war machine was spinning up, and Charlotte knew from experience that once it started, it wouldn't stop until every threat was neutralized. Tomorrow at noon, Diego was saying. Jasmine delivers the intelligence to Chen at the location he specified. We'll have teams positioned on every exit, surveillance in place, and extraction ready if things go sideways. But gentlemen, I want Chen alive if possible. He has information we need, and I intend to get it before he dies. Charlotte leaned against the doorframe, watching her husband coordinate what was essentially a military operation with the calm precision of someone who'd done this before. This was his world, violence and strategy and calculated risks, and she'd chosen to be part of it. Diego finished his call and looked up, his eyes finding her immediately. How is she? Scared, sorry, ready to help. Charlotte moved into the office, closing the door. Diego, after this is over, after we've dealt with Chen, what happens to Vincent? That depends. If his information checks out, if he helps us destroy Chen and we recover his son alive, he'll be allowed to retire with a severance package and a strong suggestion to leave Chicago. If his son is dead or if he betrays us again, he'll be buried in an unmarked grave. Diego's voice was matter of fact. Why? Because I keep thinking about what you said, what you'd do for Isabella. If someone threatened her, if they had her and promised to release her in exchange for betraying me, what would you do? Diego was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'd burn the world down. I'd betray everyone and everything if it meant getting her back safe. Exactly, which means Vincent did exactly what you would have done in his position. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it human. Charlotte sat on the edge of the desk. I'm not saying you should forgive him. I'm just saying, maybe we should understand why he made the choices he did. And maybe, if we can save his son, that goes a long way toward making things right. Diego pulled her into his arms, holding her with a desperation that spoke of how close they'd come to disaster. You're too good for this world. I'm exactly right for this world, because someone needs to remind you that mercy isn't weakness. Charlotte tilted her head back to look at him. We're going to win this, right? We're going to stop Chen, protect our family, and come out the other side intact. We're going to win, Diego promised, because I won't accept any other outcome. His phone buzzed, a text from Marco. Diego read it and his expression went cold. Chen moved up the timeline. He wants Jasmine to deliver the intelligence tonight at 8 p.m. instead of tomorrow at noon. Why? Because he's smart enough to be suspicious when things seem too easy. He's testing her, seeing if she'll comply with a sudden change in plans. Diego was already moving, pulling up security feeds and coordination channels. We have 4 hours to prepare instead of 20. Marco, get everyone mobilized. Charlotte, call Rosa and tell her to take Isabella to the safe house. She doesn't come home until this is over. Charlotte's heart clenched. Diego. No arguments. If this goes wrong, if Chen has a backup plan we don't know about, I want our daughter as far from here as possible. He was right, of course. Isabella's safety came first always. But the thought of sending her away, of not having her here where Charlotte could see her and hold her and know she was safe. Okay, Charlotte agreed. I'll call Rosa. As she pulled out her phone, Diego caught her hand. After tonight, this is over. Chen dies or disappears, the Triads learn Chicago is off limits, and we go back to our life. Normal, boring, safe. We've never been normal or boring. Then we'll settle for safe. Diego kissed her forehead. I love you. Whatever happens tonight, remember that. I love you too. And Diego, we're not settling for anything. We're taking everything, our family, our peace, our future, all of it. His smile was fierce and proud. That's my wife. As Charlotte called Rosa to arrange Isabella's protection, as Diego coordinated teams and strategies and backup plans, as the Sebastian organization mobilized for war, she felt that familiar mixture of fear and determination that had defined their life together. Tonight they'd face Raymond Chen and the threat he represented. Tonight they'd prove that the Sebastian family couldn't be broken by betrayal or fear or violence. And tomorrow, if they survived, they'd start rebuilding the trust and safety that 5 years of peace had given them. But first, they had to survive tonight. The next 4 hours were controlled chaos. Charlotte stood in Isabella's room watching Rosa pack an overnight bag with practiced efficiency, favorite pajamas, stuffed animals, books, the purple backpack that had caused such drama that morning. It felt like a lifetime ago that their biggest concern was first day of school jitters. How long will she be gone? Charlotte asked, her voice catching. As long as it takes, Rosa said gently. Mija, this is the right call. The safe house is secure and she'll think it's an adventure. I'll tell her we're having a special sleepover. She'll ask for me. She always asks for me at bedtime. I know, and I'll tell her you love her and you'll see her tomorrow. Rosa paused in her packing, moving to take Charlotte's hands. "You're doing the right thing. Protecting her is always the right thing." Charlotte nodded, blinking back tears. She wouldn't cry in front of Isabella. Wouldn't let her daughter see the fear. But God, it hurt to send her away, even knowing it was necessary. The sound of the school bus pulling up to the estate gates, early pickup, arranged by Marco, sent Charlotte running downstairs. Isabella bounded off the bus, her purple backpack bouncing, chattering excitedly about something that had happened at recess. "Mama, guess what? Sophie said I could come to her birthday party and there's going to be a bounce house," and Isabella stopped, reading Charlotte's face with that uncanny perception. "What's wrong?" Charlotte knelt down, pulling her daughter close. "Nothing's wrong, baby, but you get to do something special tonight. You're going to have a sleepover with Rosa at the fun house." The fun house was what they called the safe house, a reinforced property 30 miles outside the city that Isabella had visited a few times for practice drills that she thought were games. "Tonight, but it's Tuesday. We have school tomorrow." "Rosa, we'll take you to school from there. It's just for one night." Charlotte smoothed Isabella's wild curls. "And baby, I need you to be brave for Mama, okay? To go with Rosa and listen to everything she says and remember that Dada and I love you so, so much." Isabella's eyes welled up. "You're scaring me." "Don't be scared. Everything's fine, I promise. We just need to make sure you're extra safe tonight while Dada handles some business." Charlotte kissed her forehead, breathing in the little girl's scent of shampoo and sunshine. "You're my brave girl, right?" "Right," Isabella said, but her voice trembled. Diego appeared in the doorway and Isabella immediately reached for him. He scooped her up, holding her tight, and Charlotte saw his mask slip for just a moment, the raw fear of a father sending his child into hiding. "Piccola," he said softly, "you do exactly what Rosa tells you, yes. No arguing, no adventures, just safe and careful." "Okay, Dada." Isabella wrapped her arms around his neck. "Are you and Mama going to be okay?" "We're going to be fine. And tomorrow, we'll come get you and maybe we'll stop for ice cream on the way home. Triple chocolate. Whatever flavor you want." Isabella seemed satisfied with this. She hugged them both one more time, and then Rosa was leading her toward the armored SUV that would transport them to the safe house. Charlotte watched until the vehicle disappeared through the gates, her hand pressed against her mouth to hold back sobs. Diego's arm came around her shoulders. "She'll be safe. That house is a fortress, and Rosa would die before letting anything happen to her." "I know, it just feels wrong sending her away." "Welcome to parenthood in my world. Nothing ever feels completely right." They stood there for another moment before Diego's phone buzzed, Marco, signaling that the final preparations were complete. It was time. In Diego's office, a war room had been assembled. Monitors showed surveillance feeds from a dozen different locations. Communications channels crackled with status updates, and a large map of Chicago was marked with positions and routes. Marco briefed them on the plan. "Chen wants the intelligence delivered to a warehouse in Bridgeport, neutral territory, supposedly. Jasmine goes in alone, hands over the USB drive, collects her payment, and leaves. Our teams will be positioned here, here, and here." He indicated points on the map, "with sniper coverage on the roof and tactical units ready to move in on your signal." "What about Chen's security?" Diego asked. "Based on Vincent's intelligence, he'll have at least a dozen men, probably more as backup positioned nearby. Chen himself will likely stay in the vehicle until he's confirmed the intelligence is genuine. So we need Jasmine to get close enough to confirm his presence, but not so close that she's in the kill zone if things go wrong." Diego studied the map. "What's our extraction protocol if Chen gets suspicious?" "Two routes: primary through the east loading dock, secondary through the service tunnel that connects to the adjacent building. We'll have vehicles staged at both exits." Marco's expression was grim. But boss, if Chen suspects a trap, he'll kill Jasmine before we can extract her. There won't be time for hesitation. Then we make sure he doesn't suspect. Diego turned to where Vincent stood against the wall, looking like a ghost of himself. Vincent, you've been in contact with Chen throughout this. What's his tell when he's suspicious? Vincent stepped forward, his movements careful like he expected to be struck at any moment. He gets very quiet. Normally he talks constantly, filling silence with conversation. But when he suspects something, he goes silent and still. That's when you know he's about to act. And if he's satisfied, he'll make a joke, dark humor, usually at someone else's expense. It's his way of asserting dominance when he feels in control. Diego nodded, filing this information away. Charlotte, you're staying here. You monitor communications and coordinate with. No, Charlotte interrupted. I'm going. Every head in the room turned toward her. Diego's expression went blank, never a good sign. Excuse me. I'm going. Jasmine is more likely to stay calm if I'm there. She trusts me, and if something goes wrong, if she needs to improvise, she'll look for me. Charlotte met Diego's eyes steadily. I'm not going into the warehouse. I'll stay in one of the surveillance vehicles, but I'm going. Absolutely not. Diego. No, Charlotte, this is non-negotiable. You're staying here where it's safe. Charlotte felt anger spark in her chest. You don't get to make that decision for me. I'm your husband and the head of this family. Yes, I do. The room had gone very quiet. Everyone suddenly fascinated by their shoes or the ceiling or literally anything, except the argument unfolding before them. Charlotte stepped closer to Diego, lowering her voice. 5 years ago, I walked into Viktor Volkov's compound alone to protect this family. I've been taking shooting lessons with Marco for 3 years. I know the protocols, I know the risks, and I know I can help. So you can either accept that I'm coming and plan accordingly, or you can waste time arguing while I go anyway. Diego's jaw worked, muscles flexing with the effort of controlling his temper. If something happens to you, then you'll burn down everyone responsible just like you would for Isabella, I know. But Diego, nothing is going to happen because we're prepared, we're smart, and we're not letting fear make our decisions. Charlotte softened slightly, touching his arm. I need to do this. Please understand. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Diego turned to Marco. She stays in the armored surveillance vehicle with full security detail. At the first sign of trouble, they extract her immediately. Non-negotiable. Yes, boss. Diego looked back at Charlotte, his expression still thunderous but resigned. We're discussing this later. Looking forward to it. At 7:30 p.m., the convoy left the estate, 6 vehicles moving through Chicago's evening traffic with military precision. Charlotte rode in the middle vehicle with Marco, watching the city pass by and thinking about how different everything looked when you knew violence was coming. Jasmine was in the lead vehicle with 2 guards, going over her instructions one final time. The USB drive she'd carry contained false intelligence, enough truth mixed with lies to seem genuine on first inspection, but ultimately useless. The real goal wasn't the exchange itself, but what came after, following Chen back to wherever he operated from, mapping his organization, finding Vincent's son. You okay? Marco asked, noting Charlotte's tense posture. Define okay. Fair point. Marco checked his weapons, a ritual Charlotte had seen dozens of times but never quite gotten used to. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call coming tonight. Boss is scared, which makes him overprotective, but you being here might make the difference if things get complicated. Or I might just be a distraction that gets people killed. You saved Boss's life when Victor took you. You've proven yourself a dozen times over. Stop second-guessing. Marco's scarred face was serious. You're not just Mrs. Sebastian anymore. You're part of this family's strength. Act like it. Charlotte nodded, drawing confidence from his words. She wasn't the frightened cleaner from Bella, not anymore. She was Charlotte Sebastian, and she'd learned to be dangerous when her family needed her to be. The warehouse district of Bridgeport was exactly as grim as expected. Abandoned buildings, broken streetlights, the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody talked about it afterward. Their convoy split up, vehicles taking different positions around the target warehouse while maintaining communication. Charlotte's vehicle parked 2 blocks away with a clear view of the warehouse entrance through the surveillance cameras. She could see Jasmine getting out of her vehicle, the USB drive clutched in her hand, her body language projecting nervous fear that wasn't entirely an act. "All teams in position," Marco said into his comm. "Target building is quiet. No movement detected." "Copy that," Diego's voice crackled through. He was positioned with the tactical team, ready to move in if needed. "Jasmine, you're clear to approach. Remember, in and out, no heroics." Charlotte watched Jasmine cross the empty street and disappear into the warehouse. The surveillance cameras inside showed her walking through the cavernous space toward a circle of light in the center, where a table and 2 chairs had been set up like some kind of twisted business meeting. And sitting in one of those chairs, looking perfectly relaxed, Raymond Chen. He was smaller than Charlotte had expected, mid-50s with silver-streaked hair and the kind of face that could have belonged to anyone's uncle. Nothing about him screamed dangerous crime lord, which, Charlotte supposed, was exactly what made him dangerous. "Right on time," Chen said, his voice carrying through the surveillance equipment. "I appreciate punctuality, Ms. Torres. It's a rare quality." Jasmine set the USB drive on the table. "The information you wanted, everything on the Sebastian family, routines, security protocols, the daughter's school schedule, it's all there." Chen picked up the drive, turning it over in his fingers. "You seem nervous." "You moved up the timeline. That makes me nervous." "Smart girl." Chen smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You know what else makes people nervous? Being watched. Tell me, Ms. Torres, how many surveillance teams does Diego Sebastian have positioned around this warehouse?" Charlotte's blood turned to ice. He knew. Somehow he knew. Jasmine's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No," Chen stood, and a dozen armed men materialized from the shadows of the warehouse. They'd been there the whole time, invisible until Chen signaled them. "Let me rephrase. How many teams does Sebastian have positioned, and how much time do I have before they realize I'm not the fool they think I am?" "All teams move in now," Diego's voice exploded through the comms. "Jasmine, get down." The warehouse erupted in gunfire. Charlotte watched in horror as Jasmine dove behind the table, as Chen's men opened fire on the entrance where the tactical teams were breaching, as the careful plan dissolved into chaos. Marco was already moving, starting the vehicle and accelerating toward the extraction point. "No," Charlotte grabbed his arm. "Jasmine's still in there. Boss's orders are to extract you. Other teams will get her." "We're closer." "Mrs. Sebastian, I'm not letting you die in a warehouse because you want to save your friend. That's not how this works." Through the surveillance feed, Charlotte could see Diego's team fighting their way into the warehouse, could see Jasmine crawling toward the east exit while bullets tore through the air around her. She was going to make it. She just needed 30 more seconds. Then Chen appeared behind her, gun leveled at her head. "Stop," he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Stop firing or the girl dies." The gunfire slackened, then ceased. Diego's voice came through, deadly calm. "Let her go, Chen. She's no use to you dead. On the contrary, she's extremely useful as a demonstration." Chen hauled Jasmine to her feet, keeping the gun pressed to her temple. "You thought you could trick me, feed me false intelligence and follow me home like a lost puppy. Diego Sebastian, I'm disappointed. I expected better from the great Sebastian family." "What do you want?" "Originally, your territory, your operations, your complete submission." To Triad Authority in Chicago. Now, Chen's smile was cold. Now I want blood, starting with this traitor who thought she could play both sides. She's just a courier, Diego said, and Charlotte could hear him calculating, trying to find an angle. She doesn't know anything useful. Killing her accomplishes nothing. It accomplishes sending a message. Nobody betrays the Triads. Not her, not Vincent, not anyone. Charlotte's mind raced. Chen knew about Vincent's betrayal, which meant he'd been planning for this exact scenario. The whole meeting was a trap designed to draw out Diego's forces and kill Jasmine as a public demonstration of his power. Unless they changed the game entirely. "Marco, I need your phone," Charlotte said. "Mrs. Sebastian." "Now." Marco handed it over, and Charlotte dialed the number she'd memorized, but hoped never to use. Diego's emergency line, the one that bypassed all other communications and went directly to his earpiece. "Charlotte," Diego's voice was strained. "You're supposed to be. Shut up and listen. Chen knows about Vincent because Vincent told him. It's the only way this makes sense. Chen moved up the timeline to test our response, positioned his men in advance, and knew exactly where to look for surveillance. Vincent's been playing us." There was a pause. Then, "Vincent is in the command vehicle, unconscious. Marco sedated him an hour ago when he tried to make a call to an unknown number." Charlotte's theory collapsed. If Vincent wasn't the leak, then who? "Oh God," she breathed. "Diego, how did Chen know we'd be using the warehouse surveillance, that specific system?" "Vincent told us Chen requested that location. We assumed." Diego stopped. "It was Chen's choice. He picked a location where he controlled the infrastructure. And that means he's been watching us watching him. He saw our teams move into position. He knew the plan before we executed it." Charlotte's mind clicked through the implications. "Which means this whole thing was designed to do exactly what it's doing. Trap Jasmine, draw out your forces, and make you look weak in front of every crime family in Chicago who's probably watching this right now." "Fuck," Diego said quietly. "He live-streamed it. The Castellanos just sent me a link. Chen's broadcasting the whole thing to every major organization in the city. We're the entertainment." Charlotte looked at the surveillance feed showing Chen with his gun to Jasmine's head, showing Diego's teams pinned down in a Mexican standoff. They couldn't win without getting Jasmine killed. And suddenly, she knew exactly what needed to happen. It was insane, it was dangerous. Diego would hate it. It was also the only move Chen wouldn't expect. "Marco," Charlotte said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system, "take me to the warehouse, now." "Absolutely not." "That's an order, not from Mrs. Sebastian, from the woman who's about to save all your asses." Charlotte met his eyes. "Chen wants a demonstration. Let's give him one he'll never forget." Marco stared at her for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he smiled, the fierce, scarred smile of someone who recognized a kindred spirit in chaos. "Boss is going to kill us both," he said, already redirecting the vehicle. "Only if we survive," Charlotte replied, "but at least we'll die doing something spectacular." As the warehouse loomed closer, as Marco radioed the other teams to tell them something insane was about to happen, Charlotte pulled out her phone and sent Diego a single text. "Trust me, I love you, don't kill Marco." Then she checked the gun Marco had given her 3 years ago, the one she'd hoped never to use outside a practice range, and prepared to walk into a building full of people who wanted her dead. Because if Chen wanted to make this personal, to turn it into a demonstration of power and fear, then Charlotte would show him what happened when you threatened the Sebastian family. She'd show him that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room wasn't the one with the biggest gun or the most violent reputation. Sometimes it was the cleaning woman who'd learned to be a queen. The warehouse had a service entrance on the south side, unwatched by Chen's men, because he assumed no one would be stupid enough to walk into his trap. Charlotte was about to prove him very wrong. Marco positioned the vehicle in the alley, giving Charlotte one final check. Body armor is rated for most handgun rounds. Earpiece keeps you connected to all teams. And Mrs. Sebastian, if this goes sideways, you drop and we come get you. No heroics. Define heroics. Anything that makes me explain to boss how I let his wife get shot. Charlotte managed a smile despite the terror coursing through her veins. I'll try to keep the shooting to a minimum. She slipped out of the vehicle and moved toward the service entrance, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone in a 3-block radius could hear it. The door was locked, but Marco had given her the bypass code. Apparently, the Sebastian family had prepared for every contingency, including infiltrating warehouses in Bridgeport. Inside, the building was dark and smelled of oil and old metal. Charlotte could hear voices from the main floor, the tense standoff still playing out. She moved carefully, using the cover of machinery and storage crates, working her way toward where she could see the circle of light in the center of the warehouse. Diego's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Charlotte, whatever you're planning, stop, please, I can't." His voice cracked. "I can't lose you." Charlotte keyed her mic, whispering, "You're not going to lose me, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" A long pause, then, "I trust you, but I'm also terrified." "Good, that means you're paying attention." Charlotte took a deep breath. "On my signal, I need you to shift your team's position like you're preparing to rush Chen. Make him focus on you, on the immediate threat. Give me 30 seconds of him being distracted." "Charlotte, do you trust me or not?" Another pause, then, "Signal when you're ready." Charlotte moved closer, close enough now to see Chen clearly. He still had the gun pressed to Jasmine's temple, his body positioned so Diego's snipers couldn't get a clean shot. Jasmine looked terrified but alert, her eyes scanning for any opening. Around them, Chen's men held their positions, professional, disciplined, clearly experienced. This wasn't just muscle he'd hired. These were trained soldiers, probably former military or police from San Francisco who'd gone private for better pay. Charlotte counted 12 visible hostiles, probably more hidden in the shadows. The odds were terrible. Which was exactly why Chen wouldn't expect someone to walk right up to him. Charlotte checked her gun one more time. Safety off, round chambered, hands steady despite the adrenaline. She'd practiced this scenario 100 times with Marco. Approach from an unexpected angle, create confusion, exploit the chaos. She just hoped theory translated to practice. "Marco, I'm in position," she whispered. "Diego, get ready on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Charlotte stood up and walked into the light. The reaction was instant, and exactly what she'd hoped for, shock rippling through Chen's men, guns swiveling toward this new threat, Chen himself turning to see who was stupid enough to approach. "Hello, Raymond," Charlotte said, her voice carrying through the warehouse. "I'm Charlotte Sebastian, Diego's wife. I believe you've been wanting to meet me." Chen's expression cycled through surprise, calculation, and finally amusement. "Mrs. Sebastian, how unexpected, and how foolish. Is it? You wanted to send a message about the consequences of betraying the Triads. Kill my friend, humiliate my husband, show everyone that the Sebastian family is vulnerable." Charlotte kept walking, moving closer with the slow confidence of someone who had nothing to hide. "But you made a mistake, Raymond. You assumed Diego was the only one you needed to worry about. And I should worry about you, a former cleaning woman playing at being a mafia wife. You should worry about what I represent. You see, you think this is about territories and power and criminal enterprises, but you're wrong. This is about family." Charlotte was close enough now to see the confusion in Chen's eyes. "That girl you're holding, she's my family, not by blood but by choice, and you just made the fatal mistake of threatening her." Chen laughed, but there was uncertainty in it. You walked into a building full of armed men to make a speech. I expected better from Sebastian's wife. Oh, this isn't a speech. It's a negotiation. Charlotte stopped 10 feet away, close enough to be heard clearly, far enough that Chen couldn't grab her immediately. You let Jasmine go, you walk away from Chicago, and I convince my husband not to declare war on the entire Triad organization. That's not a negotiation. That's a demand with no leverage. Isn't it? You're live streaming this to every major family in Chicago, showing them what happens when someone crosses you. But Raymond, they're also seeing what happens when someone crosses us. Charlotte let steel enter her voice. Right now, there are sniper teams positioned on 6 different rooftops, all with clear shots at your men. There are tactical teams at every exit. And there are files being uploaded to every federal database in the country. Files containing evidence of every Triad operation in San Francisco, every bribed official, every illegal transaction. Files that Vincent gave us before you even started planning this operation. Chen's face went pale. Vincent wouldn't. Vincent would do anything to save his son, including pretending to work for you while actually working for us. You thought you turned him 5 years ago. We've been feeding you controlled intelligence for the past 18 months, watching you build this entire operation on false data. It was a complete bluff. Charlotte had no idea if any of this was true, but Chen didn't know that. And judging by his expression, the lie was working. You're bluffing, Chen said, but his voice wavered. Am I? Then why did we let you set this trap? Why did we walk right into it with cameras rolling? Because Raymond, this wasn't your trap for us. This was our trap for you. Charlotte smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. You wanted to demonstrate power. Congratulations. You've demonstrated exactly what happens to people who threaten the Sebastian family. Every organization watching this feed now knows you got outsmarted by a cleaning woman and a mafia boss. How's that for reputation? The warehouse was absolutely silent. Even the tactical teams had stopped moving, everyone frozen by the audacity of what was unfolding. Chen's hand trembled. Slightly on the gun. I'll kill her. I'll kill both of you. You could, but then Diego declares war. The Triads lose their foothold in Chicago before they even establish it, and you die knowing you failed spectacularly on international live stream. Charlotte took another step forward. And hear me out, you let Jasmine go, you provide the location where you're holding Vincent's son, and you get a 24-hour head start before we come after you. Use it to disappear, relocate, start over somewhere we don't care about. Your choice. This is insane. This is business. Charlotte held out her hand. 24 hours, Raymond. Clock starts when Jasmine walks out of here alive. What's it going to be? For a long, terrible moment, Charlotte thought she'd miscalculated. Chen's finger tightened on the trigger, his eyes wild with the humiliation of being outmaneuvered. Diego's voice in her earpiece was deadly calm, counting down. 3 seconds until we take the shot. 2 seconds. Then Chen lowered the gun. You're either brilliant or insane, he said quietly, pushing Jasmine toward Charlotte. Michael Chen, Vincent's son, is being held at a warehouse in Oakland. I'll text the address to Vincent's phone. And Mrs. Sebastian, if we ever meet again, I won't be so generous. If we ever meet again, Charlotte said, catching Jasmine as she stumbled forward, it'll be because you didn't run far enough. And I promise you, Raymond, you don't want that meeting. Chen signaled his men and they began withdrawing, carefully, professionally, keeping their weapons trained on the tactical teams but moving toward the exits. Within minutes, the warehouse was empty except for Sebastian forces and the 2 women standing in the circle of light. Diego emerged from cover, moving toward them with barely controlled fury and relief warring on his face. Charlotte, what the hell did you just do? Negotiated, Charlotte said, her legs suddenly shaking as the adrenaline drained, also possibly started an international incident. It's hard to tell. Diego pulled her into his arms so hard she gasped, his face buried in her hair. You're insane. Brilliant and terrifying and completely insane. Did it work? Chen's men are withdrawing. We have teams tailing them to see where they go. And Diego pulled out his phone, showing her a text that had just arrived with coordinates in Oakland. Vincent's son. If the information is real, we can have him extracted within hours. Jasmine, who'd been standing frozen with shock, suddenly began crying. Charlie, you walked in here like you weren't scared of anything. I was terrified. I'm still terrified. But Jas, that's what family does. We walk into the fire for each other. Charlotte turned to Diego. Please tell me Marco didn't get in trouble for bringing me here. Marco's currently getting simultaneously praised and threatened by half my organization. I'll deal with him later. Diego's eyes were still scanning Charlotte for injuries, his hands checking her body armor. You're not hurt. No one shot at you. I think they were too confused to shoot, which was kind of the plan. Marco appeared with a security team, all of them looking at Charlotte with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Mrs. Sebastian, that was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. I haven't decided which. Can it be both? With you always. The next hour was a blur of activity. Teams securing the warehouse, reviewing the live stream footage, which had apparently been watched by every major crime family in 3 states, and coordinating with Sebastian contacts in Oakland to locate and extract Michael Chen. Charlotte sat in one of the vehicles with Jasmine, both of them wrapped in shock blankets despite the warm evening, processing what had just happened. You could have died, Jasmine said quietly. Chen could have just shot you the second you walked out. He could have, but he was arrogant, which made him predictable. Men like that always need to be the smartest person in the room. I just had to make him believe he was being outsmarted in front of an audience. His pride did the rest. Where did you learn to do that? Charlotte smiled tiredly. 5 years of watching Diego negotiate with people who want to kill him. You pick up things. Diego appeared at the vehicle door. Jasmine, we're going to need a full debrief, but that can wait until tomorrow. Right now, Marco's taking you to a secure location where you'll be protected until we confirm Chen has actually left Chicago. And after that, Jasmine asked. After that, we set you up with a new identity, new location, and enough money to start fresh. Somewhere far from here, somewhere Chen will never find you. Diego's expression softened slightly. You helped save my family. That earns you a second chance. After Jasmine was escorted away, Diego climbed into the vehicle beside Charlotte, pulling her close. They sat in silence for a long moment, just breathing, being alive, being together. Isabella, Charlotte said suddenly, we need to get Isabella. Already arranged. Rose is bringing her back to the estate now. She'll be home before we are. Diego's voice was rough with emotion. Charlotte, what you did tonight walking into that warehouse, facing down Chen like you weren't terrified. I was terrified. My hands didn't stop shaking until 10 minutes ago. But you did it anyway. You saved Jasmine, you saved our reputation, and you possibly prevented a war. Diego pulled back to look at her face. You're extraordinary, you know that. I'm a cleaning woman who got in over her head and learned to swim. You're a queen who built an empire out of love and stubbornness. Diego kissed her softly. And I'm the luckiest man alive that you chose us. Charlotte leaned into him, feeling the tension finally drain from her body. Is it over? Is Chen really going to leave? Chicago. Our intelligence suggests he's already on a plane to Vancouver. Whether he stays gone depends on whether he's smart enough to know he lost. Diego's expression hardened. But if he ever comes back, if he ever threatens this family again, we'll handle it together. Charlotte laced her fingers through his. That's what we do. By the time they made it back to the estate, it was nearly midnight. Charlotte was exhausted, covered in warehouse dust, and wanted nothing more than a hot shower and her daughter's arms around her. Isabella was waiting in the entrance hall with Rosa, fighting sleep, but determined to see her parents. The second she spotted them, she ran. "Mama, Dada, Rosa said you were doing important business and I was so worried and—" Isabella's words tumbled over each other as Charlotte scooped her up, holding her so tight the little girl squeaked. "I'm here, baby, we're both here, everything's okay now." "You promise?" "I promise," Charlotte kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing in the familiar scent. "How was your sleepover?" "Rosa let me stay up late and we watched movies and she made popcorn, but Mama, I missed you so much." "I missed you too, sweet girl, so much." Diego wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood like that in the entrance hall. A family that had been tested and survived, that had faced down threats and emerged stronger. "Bed," Rosa said firmly from the doorway. "All of you. The world can wait until tomorrow." For once, no one argued. Charlotte carried Isabella upstairs, Diego following close behind. In Isabella's room, they went through the familiar bedtime routine: pajamas, teeth brushing, story time. Charlotte read The Velveteen Rabbit while Diego did the voices, and Isabella's eyes drooped closed somewhere around the part where the rabbit becomes real. "She's out," Diego whispered, carefully extracting himself from the bed. Charlotte tucked the blankets around their daughter, watching her. Sleep with the complete peace only children can achieve. She has no idea how close we came to losing everything tonight. And she never will. That's the point of what we do, keeping her world safe enough that she never has to know about the darkness. They stood in the doorway for another moment, watching Isabella sleep, before heading to their own room. Charlotte showered first, washing away the warehouse dust and gun oil and fear, letting the hot water pound against her shoulders until some of the tension released. When she emerged, Diego was on the phone, his expression grim. Charlotte caught the tail end of the conversation. "Confirmed he's crossed into Canada. Our people in Vancouver are tracking him, but boss, he's moving like he's running scared." Diego hung up and met Charlotte's eyes. "Chen's running, really running, not regrouping. Whatever you said to him in that warehouse, it worked. Or he's smart enough to know when he's beat. Either way, the Triads aren't making a move on Chicago anytime soon. We've been monitoring communications. Chen's bosses in San Francisco are furious with him. There's talk of him being removed from his position." "Good," Charlotte moved to the bed, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. "What about Vincent and his son?" "Oakland team found Michael Chen 2 hours ago. He's alive, relatively unharmed, currently being transported to a private hospital for evaluation. Vincent's already on a plane to meet him." Diego's voice was complicated with emotion. "I told him after he sees his son, after he knows Michael is safe, he has 24 hours to leave Chicago and never come back." "You're letting him go." "I'm giving him the same chance we gave your friend. A second chance to do better, be better. But Charlotte, if he ever betrays this family again—" "He won't. Some lessons you only need to learn once." Charlotte patted the bed beside her. "Come here, stop being the boss for 5 minutes and just be my husband." Diego changed and slid into bed beside her, pulling her close with the careful relief of someone who'd been prepared to lose everything. "I aged 10 years tonight. You and me both." Charlotte nestled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. "Diego, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Jasmine sooner. I should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. You were trying to protect me, protect the family. I understand that impulse." Diego kissed the top of her head. "But Charlotte, promise me something. Next time, if there is a next time, you tell me everything immediately. No matter how complicated, no matter how scary, we face it together." "Together," Charlotte agreed. "Although hopefully there won't be a next time for a while. I'd like at least 6 months of boring domestic bliss before the next crisis." "I'll see what I can arrange." They fell into comfortable silence. the kind that came from 5 years of marriage and shared trauma, and love that had been tested and proven unbreakable. Charlotte felt herself drifting toward sleep when Diego spoke again. "You know what the other families are saying about tonight?" "What?" "That Diego Sebastian has the most dangerous wife in Chicago. That anyone thinking about crossing the Sebastian family better remember the cleaning woman who walked into a warehouse full of armed men and walked out victorious." Diego's voice held pride and amusement. "Marco's already fielding calls from people who want to know if you offer consulting services." Charlotte laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. "I'm a one-family operation. Tell them to find their own dangerous wives." "Already did." Diego shifted to look at her face. "Charlotte, I need you to understand something. What you did tonight, it wasn't just brave, it was strategic brilliance. You saw the angle I missed, the psychological leverage that could break Chen without firing a shot. You've become exactly what this family needs. A cleaning woman who occasionally prevents wars. A queen who rules through intelligence rather than violence." Diego's expression was serious now. "I built this empire on fear and power. You're teaching me there are other ways, better ways. And Charlotte, our daughter is watching, learning from both of us. The empire she inherits someday will be stronger because of what you've shown her." Charlotte felt tears prick her eyes. "I never wanted to be part of this world." "I know, but you're here anyway, and you've made it better just by being in it." They kissed, soft and sweet, and full of promise for all the tomorrows they'd almost lost. When they finally settled into sleep, wrapped around each other like they could ward off any future threats through sheer proximity, Charlotte felt something settle in her soul. Peace, hard one, tested by fire but real. Outside, security patrols circled the estate. In the basement, intelligence teams analyzed the night's events and updated threat assessments. In Oakland, Vincent held his son for the first time in 5 years and wept with relief and guilt. And in Vancouver, Raymond Chen boarded a plane that would take him far from Chicago, far from the Sebastian family, carrying the lesson that sometimes the most dangerous person isn't the one with the most guns. Sometimes it's the one with the most love to protect. What would you do if protecting your family meant walking into danger alone? Would you take the risk or find another way? Let me know in the comments below. 3 weeks later, Charlotte stood in the kitchen of the Sebastian estate watching Isabella practice her reading homework at the table. Life had returned to something resembling normal: school pickups, homework battles, the comfortable chaos of family dinners. But normal meant something different now. Diego walked in carrying his phone, his expression troubled. That was Marco. Chen was found dead in Vancouver this morning. Triad. Execution. His own organization decided he was too much of a liability after the Chicago failure. Charlotte felt a complex mix of emotions. So it's really over. That part is, but Charlotte, the families are talking about us, about what happened at that warehouse. There are complications. Isabella looked up from her reading. What's complications? Complications, Charlotte corrected automatically. It means when things get tricky, and it's nothing for you to worry about, baby. Grown-up business stuff. After Isabella returned to her book, Diego pulled Charlotte aside. The Castellano family wants a meeting. They're concerned about the balance of power shifting too far in our favor. Apparently, your performance at the warehouse has made everyone nervous about what the Sebastian family is capable of. I walked into a building and talked, that's all. You walked into a building full of armed men, negotiated the release of a hostage, and made a triad boss flee the country. Without firing a single shot. Do you know how rare that is? How unprecedented? Diego's voice held pride but also concern. The families are afraid, Charlotte, not of me but of us together, of what we represent. And that's a bad thing. It's a complicated thing. Fear can create peace, but it can also create desperate enemies. Diego ran his hand through his hair. The Castellanos want assurances that we're not planning to expand, not planning to use this new reputation to take over their territories. Charlotte thought about this, about the delicate balance of power that kept Chicago's underworld from descending into all-out war. What do you want to do? I want to take Isabella to the park this afternoon and not think about family politics or territory disputes or any of it. Diego smiled tiredly. But since that's not an option, I want you to come to the meeting. Show them that the Sebastian family isn't interested in conquest, just in protecting what's ours. You want me to be your secret weapon again. I want you to be my wife, my partner, the person who makes this family stronger than any amount of guns or money ever could. The meeting was set for that evening at a neutral restaurant. Not Bella Not, thankfully, but a similar establishment where Chicago's elite gathered to discuss business both legal and otherwise. Charlotte dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that projected confidence without aggression. 5 years had taught her the language of power dressing, the subtle signals sent by clothing choices. You look like a queen, Rosa said, helping her with her necklace. But Mija, be careful tonight. The Castellanos are not people who forgive easily. I'm not looking for forgiveness. I'm looking for understanding. At the restaurant, they were led to a private room where Antonio Castellano waited with his wife and 2 senior advisors. Castellano was in his 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, with the bearing of someone who'd survived. Decades in a profession where most people didn't make it past 40. Mr. Sebastian, Mrs. Sebastian. He stood, offering his hand to Diego and then, surprisingly, to Charlotte. Thank you for meeting with us on such short notice. Of course. Diego helped Charlotte into her seat before taking his own. Your message suggested this was important. It is. Castellano settled back, studying them both. Chicago operates on a delicate balance. The families coexist through mutual understanding. We each control our territories, respect boundaries, and avoid the kind of violence that brings federal attention. A system that has worked well for decades, Diego agreed neutrally. Yes, but that system depends on predictability, on knowing what each family is capable of, what they want, how far they'll go. Castellano's eyes shifted to Charlotte. Mrs. Sebastian, what you did 3 weeks ago was extraordinary, also deeply unsettling. Charlotte kept her expression calm. I protected my family, nothing more. You walked unarmed into a hostile situation and talked a triad boss into retreating. You demonstrated that the Sebastian family has capabilities we didn't anticipate. Psychological warfare, strategic manipulation, the ability to win without violence. Castellano leaned forward slightly. That changes the equation, Mrs. Sebastian. That makes everyone nervous. With respect, Mr. Castellano, I'm not a weapon. I'm a wife and mother who did what needed to be done to keep my family safe. Charlotte met his eyes steadily. The Sebastian family has no interest in your territories or your business. We simply want to be left alone to live our lives. And if someone threatens you again, if another family decides to test the Sebastians, then we handle it. But Mr. Castellano, we've been handling threats for 5 years without expanding beyond our current operations. Why would that change now? Castellano was quiet for a moment, then smiled slightly. You make a compelling argument, Mrs. Sebastian, but the families need more than words. They need assurances. Diego spoke up. What kind of assurances? A gesture of good faith. The Sebastian family controls the Port Authority contracts. Very lucrative, very important. We'd like access to share those contracts, spread the profits among the families rather than keeping them exclusively. Charlotte felt Diego tense beside her. The Port Authority contracts were the backbone of Sebastian family income, legitimate business that funded everything else. Giving them up would significantly weaken their position. Before Diego could respond, Charlotte spoke. No. The room went very quiet. Castellano raised an eyebrow. No. No, we won't give up our contracts. But Charlotte held up a hand, stopping Diego's objection. We will create a profit-sharing arrangement. The Sebastian family maintains control and primary percentage, but we establish a cooperative where other families can invest and receive. Returns, legal, transparent, beneficial to everyone. Castellano's wife, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. That's actually quite clever. It gives us financial participation without requiring the Sebastians to surrender control. It also creates interdependence, Charlotte continued, warming to the idea. If our family's finances are connected, if we all profit from the same sources, then attacking the Sebastian family means attacking your own interests. It's insurance through mutual benefit. Castellano studied her with new respect. You've thought about this. I have a sociology degree and 5 years of watching organized crime operate. You pick up things, Charlotte smiled. Mr. Castellano, I understand why our actions made the families nervous, but the truth is, violence is expensive and unpredictable. Cooperation is more profitable for everyone. So yes, we'll share the Port Authority profits. But in exchange, the families agree to a non-aggression pact, formal, binding. With penalties for violations. Penalties enforced by whom? By mutual agreement. If one family violates the pact, the others unite against them. Make the cost of breaking peace higher than any potential gain from violence. Diego was staring at Charlotte like he'd never seen her before. Castellano was doing the same, but his expression was thoughtful rather than shocked. You're proposing a coalition, Castellano said slowly. The families operating as a collective rather than individual powers. I'm proposing we stop pretending we're all enemies and acknowledge we're actually business partners with overlapping interests. Charlotte leaned forward. Mr. Castellano, you've been in this life long enough to know the federal government is getting smarter, more aggressive. They want to take down the families one by one. But if we present a united front, if we operate with enough legitimacy and cooperation that prosecuting one of us means taking on all of us, we become too big and too complicated to easily target, Castellano finished, a smile spreading across his face. Mrs. Sebastian, you're suggesting we legitimize organized crime. I'm suggesting we evolve, keep the profitable parts, eliminate the unnecessary violence, and build something sustainable that our children can inherit without being hunted by federal task forces. Charlotte glanced at Diego. My husband has spent 15 years protecting his territory through force. I'm suggesting we protect it through structure. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Castellano began to laugh, a deep, genuine sound of delight and surprise. Diego Sebastian, your wife is either the most dangerous person in Chicago or the smartest, possibly both. Castellano's expression turned serious. I'll take this proposal to the other families. If they agree, if we can work out the details of this profit-sharing and non-aggression pact, then Mrs. Sebastian, you'll have done something no one has managed in 50 years. You'll have brought peace to Chicago's underworld. I'll settle for keeping my family safe and maybe preventing a few unnecessary deaths along the way. After the meeting ended and they were back in the car, Diego was quiet for a long time. Finally, did you just accidentally revolutionize organized crime? I wouldn't say accidentally. I've been thinking about this for a while. Charlotte looked at him nervously. Are you angry? I know I overstepped, making proposals without discussing them with you first. Angry? Charlotte, I'm in awe. What you just proposed, it's brilliant. If the families actually agree to it, if we can pull this off, you'll have created a system that makes us all safer and more profitable. Diego pulled her close. You're extraordinary. Have I mentioned that lately? Once or twice, but I never get tired of hearing it. They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Diego spoke again. Castellano is right, you know. The federal government is getting more aggressive. There was a time when we could operate freely, but those days are ending. We need to evolve or we'll be extinct. So we evolve. We turn the Sebastian family business into something that can survive scrutiny. More legitimate operations, less violence, actual legal structures that can stand up to investigation. It'll take years. Good thing we have the time, Charlotte smiled. Although I'd like to get through at least 1 year without a crisis. Is that too much to ask? Given our track record, probably. At home, Isabella was waiting with Rosa, bouncing with excitement. Mama, guess what? What, baby? Sophie's mom called and said I can go to the birthday party, the one at the trampoline place. Can I go? Please, please, please. Charlotte looked at Diego, who sighed. I'll have Marco do a security assessment of the venue. So that's a yes. Isabella's eyes were huge and hopeful. That's a we'll see, which is almost a yes, Charlotte said, lifting her daughter for a hug. Now, did you finish your homework? Yes, Rosa helped me with the hard words. Then how about we read a story before bed? As Charlotte carried Isabella upstairs, she heard Diego on the phone with Marco, already coordinating security for a 6-year-old's birthday party at a trampoline park. It was absurd and paranoid, and exactly the kind of thing that defined their life. And Charlotte wouldn't change it for anything. Later that night, after Isabella was asleep and the house had settled into quiet, Charlotte found Diego in his office reviewing the details of the profit-sharing proposal. He looked up when she entered, smiling. Can't sleep. Too much thinking. Charlotte moved to sit on his desk. Diego, what we talked about tonight, the coalition, the legitimization of operations, do you really think it's possible? 6 months ago, I would have said no. But after tonight, after watching you convince Castellano that cooperation is more profitable than competition, yes, I think it's possible. Diego pulled her into his lap. Charlotte, you're changing this world, not with violence or fear, but with intelligence and strategy. You're making it better. I'm just trying to make it safer. For Isabella, for us, for all the families. You're doing more than that. You're building something new, something that might actually last. Diego kissed her softly. When I met you 5 years ago, I thought you'd make Bella happy. I never imagined you'd remake my entire world. Our world, Charlotte corrected. We're doing this together. Together, Diego agreed. Over the next 3 months, Charlotte's proposal took shape. The families met weekly, hammering out details of the profit-sharing arrangement and non-aggression pact. There were disagreements, moments of tension where old grudges threatened to derail everything. But slowly, impossibly, the coalition came together. Charlotte attended every meeting, often the only woman. In rooms full of dangerous men, and earned their respect through careful negotiation and strategic thinking. Marco joked that she was scarier than any enforcer he'd ever met, because at least you could shoot an enforcer. You couldn't shoot someone who made you agree with them. Isabella's birthday party at the trampoline park went off without incident, though Marco aged several years watching 6-year-olds launch themselves into foam pits with the fearlessness only children possess. Jasmine sent occasional postcards from New Zealand, where Diego had set her up with a new identity and a legitimate job. She was safe, happy, and learning to live without looking over her shoulder. Vincent called once from Australia, where he'd relocated with Michael. His son was in therapy, healing from 5 years of captivity, and Vincent was learning to be a father after 30 years of absence. He thanked Diego for the second chance and promised to never waste it. The Sebastian estate settled into a routine that felt, if not exactly normal, at least stable. Charlotte had her charity work, the legitimate kind now, using Sebastian family resources to fund youth programs in underserved neighborhoods. Diego had his business, increasingly legal and increasingly boring, which he claimed to hate, but Charlotte could tell he secretly enjoyed. And Isabella grew, taller, smarter, more curious about the world. She asked questions about her mother sometimes, about Vanessa, and Charlotte answered honestly, keeping the memories alive while making sure Isabella knew she was loved completely by everyone. On a Saturday afternoon in spring, Charlotte found herself in the gardens watching Isabella play with the estate's dogs. Diego appeared beside her, slipping his hand into hers. "Penny, for your thoughts. I was thinking about that night at Bella Knot, 5 years ago, how I almost didn't walk over to your table." "What made you do it?" "Honestly, I couldn't stand hearing a baby cry and doing." "Nothing," Charlotte smiled. "I thought I was just going to calm down a cranky toddler. I had no idea I was walking into this entire life." "Would you do it again? If you knew everything that was coming, Victor, Chen, all of it, would you still walk over?" Charlotte thought about this seriously, watching their daughter laugh as the dogs chased her across the lawn. She thought about the danger, the fear, the nights when she'd wondered if they'd survive. She thought about betrayal and violence and all the darkness that came with loving a man like Diego. Then she thought about mornings like this, about Isabella's laughter, about Diego's hand in hers, and the family they'd built from impossible circumstances. "Yes," she said simply, "I'd walk over every single time." Diego pulled her close, kissing her temple. "Best decision you ever made." "Second best. First was marrying you." "I thought marrying me was the craziest decision you ever made." "It was, but the best decisions usually." "Lord." They stood like that, watching their daughter play, while the Sebastian estate hummed with life around them. Security patrols, household staff, the legitimate business of an empire transitioning from criminal to legal. Charlotte's phone buzzed, a text from Castellano. "Coalition agreement signed by all families. Your proposal is officially adopted. Congratulations, Mrs. Sebastian. You just changed Chicago." She showed Diego, who laughed and shook his head in amazement. "From cleaning woman to the architect of organized crime's future. That's quite a career trajectory." "I prefer to think of it as social work with a very specific clientele." "However you think of it, you're extraordinary." Diego turned her to face him, his expression serious. "Charlotte, I love you, not just for what you've done for this family or how you've changed my world. I love you because you see the broken parts of me and love them anyway. Because you walked into darkness and brought light. Because you're brave and stubborn and impossibly good, even when goodness seems impossible." Charlotte felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you too, even though you're complicated and dangerous and lead the most stressful life imaginable." "So what do we do now? Now that we've saved the family, reformed organized crime, and established peace across Chicago?" Charlotte pretended to think about it. "I suppose we could do something really radical." "What's that?" "Live happily ever after." Diego laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "You know that's not how our world works." "Maybe it's time we changed how our world works." Charlotte looked up at him, her expression fierce. "We've survived everything else. We can survive happiness too." "Deal," Diego said, and kissed her as Isabella's laughter echoed across the gardens and spring sunshine painted everything gold. 5 years after a crying baby brought them together, the Sebastian family had found something rarer than power or wealth or success. They'd found peace. Not the absence of conflict. There would always be challenges, always be threats in Diego's world. But peace in knowing they could face anything together. Peace in the family they'd built, the love they'd fought for, the future they were creating. Charlotte had walked into a restaurant intending to comfort a crying child. She'd walked out with a family, a purpose, and a love that had survived every test. Some stories end with happily ever after. This one ended with happily ever after despite everything. Which Charlotte decided was even better. That evening, after Isabella was asleep and the house was quiet, Charlotte and Diego sat on their bedroom balcony watching stars emerge over Chicago. "What are you thinking about?" Diego asked. "About how far we've come. About the fact that 5 years ago I was cleaning tables and wondering how to pay my student loans. Now I'm negotiating peace treaties between crime families. Any regrets?" Charlotte thought about this honestly. "Some. I wish we could have avoided some of the violence. I wish Isabella didn't need security teams at birthday parties. I wish your life was safer. But I don't regret us. I don't regret Isabella or this family or the life we've built. Even the hard parts, even the scary parts, they made us who we are." Charlotte turned to face him. "Diego, I need to tell you something." His expression sharpened with concern. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Actually, something's very right." Charlotte took a breath. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Diego's face cycled through shock, joy, fear, and finally settled on wonder. "Pregnant, you're sure?" "I took 3 tests this morning. Very sure." "How long have you known?" "About 6 hours. I wanted to tell you when things were calm, when we weren't in crisis mode for once." Diego pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Another baby. We're having another baby." "Are you happy? I know we didn't plan this, and with everything that's been happening." "Happy, Charlotte? I'm terrified and thrilled and completely overwhelmed." Diego pulled back to look at her face. "But yes, I'm happy. So incredibly happy. Even though it means starting over. Diapers and sleepless nights and all of it. Even though, especially though." Diego's hand moved to rest gently on her stomach, where nothing showed yet but everything was beginning. "Our family is growing. That's never a bad thing." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Charlotte spoke again. "What should we tell Isabella?" "The truth. That she's going to be a big sister, that we're all in this together, that our family is expanding." Diego smiled. "She'll probably have opinions about names." "She has opinions about everything. She gets that from you. She gets that from both of us." As Charlotte leaned against Diego, his hand still resting protectively on her stomach, she thought about the future. About raising 2 children in this complicated world, about keeping them safe while teaching them to be strong, about building something that would last beyond them. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing with the Sebastians ever was. But looking at the man beside her, thinking about the daughter asleep in her room and the child growing inside her, Charlotte knew they'd figure it out. They always did. Together. Epilogue 2 years later. Charlotte Sebastian stood in the living room of their estate watching her children play. Isabella, now 8, was teaching her 2-year-old brother Michael, named after Vincent's son, how to stack blocks properly. "No, Mikey, you have to make the bottom bigger or it falls down, like this." Michael, who had Diego's dark eyes and Charlotte's smile, promptly knocked over Isabella's carefully constructed tower and laughed with delight. "Mikey, I just spent forever making that." "He's 2, Bella. Destruction is basically his job description." Isabella huffed dramatically but started rebuilding, this time with Michael helping by handing her blocks. It was chaotic and messy and absolutely perfect. Diego appeared in the doorway, home early from a meeting with the coalition. The families were thriving under the new system, profits up and federal scrutiny down. It turned out cooperation really was more profitable than competition. "How was your day?" Charlotte asked, accepting his kiss. "Productive, boring, exactly what I always wanted." Diego watched his children play, his expression soft. "This is what matters. All the rest, the business, the families, all of it, it's just so we can have this." "Wise man." "I married a wise woman. It rubbed off." Charlotte laughed, moving into his arms. "Should we tell them about the coalition dinner next week? Isabella's been begging to attend a fancy grown-up party." "Let's see if She can make it through Michael's block tower demolition without committing sisterly violence first. They watched their children, Isabella patiently teaching, Michael enthusiastically destroying and rebuilding, and felt that familiar sense of rightness. This was their family, built from a crying baby in a restaurant and sustained through danger, love, and sheer stubborn determination. Charlotte's phone buzzed with a text from Keisha. "Coffee next week. I need to hear all the latest family drama." Charlotte smiled and typed back, "There is no drama. We're disgustingly happy and boring." "You're a Mafia wife. You're never boring." "Fair point. Coffee Thursday." "It's a date." As Charlotte pocketed her phone, Michael toddled over and held up his arms. "Mama, up." She lifted him, and he immediately grabbed her face with sticky hands. "Mama pretty." "Thank you, baby. You're pretty handsome yourself." Diego appeared beside them, and Michael reached for him too, wanting to be held by both parents simultaneously, a logistical impossibility that he hadn't yet figured out. "Dada, mama, both." "We're both here, Piccolo," Diego said, joining the group hug that Isabella decided needed her participation too. And there they stood, the Sebastian family all together, messy and loud and completely, perfectly whole. Charlotte thought about the girl she'd been 5 years ago, worried about student loans and medical bills, working 3 jobs and dreaming of making a difference. She'd made a difference, just not in any way she'd imagined. She'd saved a crying baby and ended up saving herself. She'd walked into danger and found her family. She'd cleaned tables and became a queen. And now, surrounded by the people she loved most in the world, in a house that hummed with life and laughter, Charlotte Sebastian knew something with absolute certainty. Every choice that had led her here, every fear faced, every risk taken, every moment of doubt, had been worth it. Because this was home. This was family. This was love. And that, Charlotte decided, was the best happily ever after anyone could ask for. Thank you for watching until the end, my wonderful readers. If you loved Charlotte and Diego's journey from that first night at Bella Knot to their beautiful family today, show some love with a like and subscribe. Tomorrow brings a new unforgettable tale that will capture your heart just as much. Until then, remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can offer someone is hope, and sometimes love finds us in the most unexpected places. Stay blessed, keep believing in second chances, and I'll see you in the next story.